Before the podcast, I wanted to let you know that on the 14th of May, we're back at the Museum of Comedy, and our guests are from the Global Human Rights Group, looking at the impact all around the world on the backlash against girls' and women's sexual and reproductive health rights, and how our rights are under a coordinated, well-funded attack. They've done an incredibly comprehensive report on this, so you don't want to miss that. Co-host is the incredible Jessica Fostekew. On the 21st of May, I will be interviewing Rose McGowan, who was very, very instrumental in kicking off the Me Too movement and actually stood up to Harvey Weinstein. That show will be at Charleston, which was the house the Bloomsbury Group used, so you can actually use the same loo as Virginia Woolf. It's an absolutely stunning place, so I recommend coming out. It's going to be really lovely. On the 22nd of May, we will be back at the Museum of Comedy with the incredible Alice McCool. I don't know if you saw her recent article in the Byline Times, but she has uncovered a transatlantic network of anti-abortion lobbyists using legal challenges and coordinated campaigns to shape NHS policy and challenge bodily autonomy in Britain. That's going to be so important. Do not miss that show if you can possibly make it. Co-host, the wonderful Felicity Ward. On the 18th of July, we'll be in the Isle of Wight at the Ventnor Fringe. Gang, I've never been to the Isle of Wight before, so this is very, very exciting. Brand new Guilty Feminist location. And if you're going up to the Edinburgh Fringe or you'd like to go up, we will be there on the 20th to the 23rd of August every night at the Gilded Balloon Theatre. If you'd like to book these shows, go to guiltyfeminist.com, click on live shows. If you'd like to know about more shows as they come in, just join our mailing list at the same website. And now, on with the podcast. Live from London, the Spontaneity Shop presents the Guilty Feminist 10 for 10 with me, Deborah Frances-White, and my very special guest, Sara Pascoe. Sara Pascoe, welcome to 10 for 10.
10 for 10. How's it been 10 years, Deborah?
How's it been?
And we
10
both still
years?
look 23.
I know, and are only 32. So that's so lucky. So we're interviewing 10 of our Guilty Feminist regulars over the years, much loved regulars, and we're talking about the last 10 years. And I wondered if you knew how early a Guilty Feminist guest you were. Do you remember what number show that was?
I remember it was relatively early because you and Sophie started the podcast and then you started having guests. And I know I wasn't the first one because I was jealous.
Oh.
I had a thing, I'm not proud of it, and it's something I've worked on over the last decade. But when I saw other people doing things I wanted to do, I would go, oh, I want that. So I know it wasn't the first one, but I didn't think, maybe it was the third or the fourth. It was relatively soon afterwards that I got the call.
It was, because I think it was the third show and it was the fourth episode because we were, so the episode one, we just recorded one episode.
Yeah.
Then that first episode took off.
Yeah, and
so,
did you both do nude drawing? Was it something to do with that? You got drawn nude, or you posed for artists. So I remember listening to it, and it was brilliant. So that was the first one.
That was the first one. So I went and posed for life drawing, and we had Shappy Kosandi on because she had worked as a life drawing model for a while.
Yeah.
So that was great, and then we did 2 episodes. After that at the RADA Studios, and then we went to Greenwich and we did 2 episodes, one with you and one with Felicity Ward.
Yes, okay.
So I think you were episode 4.
Yeah, and Felicity was the third beforehand.
Was she?
I'm trying to work out, but anyway, I remember seeing Felicity and we were both there for each other's recordings.
You were both there for each other's recordings. And yours, do you remember the theme?
Pornography, I do remember the theme, because I think at that point in my life I was researching pornography, I was learning more about it. I still don't utilise pornography to masturbate, so it's something where the rest of humanity is doing something, or it feels like, So the majority of humanity are doing this thing that you don't understand, and I had a lot of questions about it, but at that point in my feminism, I was trying to find out a lot more and have a really educated opinion rather than a gut, emotional response to something.
Yes. Yeah. I was with you. We used to do challenges then. Sophie's challenge was to stop watching porn.
Oh, was it?
And mine was to watch porn because I'd never watched porn before.
Yeah.
I remember going on Pornhub and looking at all the different categories, and it was things like, I don't know,
it's very
MILFs
confronting, isn't it? Yeah.
And things like that. And one was British. And
Was it?
yes, and it was a whole category, but it was really just some English
Winston
girl.
Churchill dressed up.
It was an English girl in a school uniform.
Oh, I see.
But she was a woman. She was a young woman.
Oh, I
but
see. But not like Margaret Thatcher being strict. No,
I'm
that's a
sure you
shame.
can find it.
I'm sure you can find it, but it's a wasted opportunity for the British section. I want Battenberg, Margaret Thatcher, Winston Churchill. Yes, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember watching it and sort of, doing some kind of parodic rundown of it. And just because it doesn't do anything for me either. And I think I'm similar to you. I'm thinking about, I think it either does something for you or it doesn't.
I think there's that. I think probably it's a physiological thing. I don't like watching people kissing in normal films. I don't know if this is all stuff we said a decade ago. I fast forward stuff. I haven't watched Heated Rivalry. I get embarrassed. I don't think actors need to pretend to have sex in films. I just believe that you've done it, okay?
You like the old 1940s films where they go to kiss and then you see waves crashing on a rock or a train going through a tunnel.
Happy. I'll just say it in the story.
I get it.
We just had sex. I like script. I like words, people talking about stuff. You can talk about the sex if you've been affected by it emotionally. Great, just don't need to be there for that.
You don't want to watch Heated Rivalry. I did enjoy Heated Rivalry, I have to say. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry about that. I don't mind it in films.
Don't apologise.
I find it sexy in films. Did you watch Wuthering Heights?
No.
For
that reason, it's disgusting. I don't want to see it. Again, I like the book. Or the story. And I guess,
well, they don't have sex in the book, but they have a lot of sex in the new film.
Yeah. I'm scared of it. I haven't seen Saltburn yet.
Oh, you mustn't watch Saltburn. I loved Saltburn, but you must not watch Saltburn. You will not enjoy it.
I don't think I'm not cultured in an erotic sense. Yeah.
Yes, it's just not. It's not what does it for you.
I'm prudish. That's it.
So you were the ideal person to talk about porn, but you kind of were in a way because you had some. You always have strong analysis on this stuff, like all of your shows. Let's hear a little bit of your first ever appearance on The Guilty Feminist. Okay. This is 10 years ago.
So I'll sound really young.
You will.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sara Pascoe. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've learnt a lot already.
So porn.
Yes.
What would you like to say about it?
Okay, so I was thinking over there. I have to say that my feelings about porn and my opinions about porn are separate. Mm-hmm. I have the morality of a 9-year-old. Pornography makes me cry. I hate that it exists. I hate that people do that for a job. I all through my life, even if people kiss on a programme, I have to leave the room because I feel like they're having a private moment. And now, and like when I was a child, like with your mum and like EastEnders or something, people would kiss, and I'd be like, I've just got to go and look at the kitchen, and I'd always run out. And in the cinema, I have to go. Oh, I need to check how much the popcorn is or something, and and then even if I'm on my own, I'll leave it playing and then just come back when they're finished. And so, yeah.
No, you do that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've not changed in 10 years on that front.
And I've also repeated myself. I forgot we had this exact conversation and I said exactly the same thing.
So interesting.
I thought it was fresh ground.
No, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But it was like, I think I'd never heard anybody talk about it quite in those terms before.
I think it's because I so feel concerned about giving anyone else looking like it's judgment or shame that I'm really keen to say, I think I'm the aberration here. I'm too far the other way. And that's why I want to think about something intellectually, but here's where my emotional sort of stance is.
And you do say, I understand that many people do this in a very empowered way, in an entrepreneurial way, and I don't want to diminish that. But you do have some prophetic ideas here, I think.
Really?
Yes. Let's listen to this.
Pornography use, they're only just really finding out what that does to people's brains because for a while they had, sexuality is elastic, watching certain things can change what you get aroused by. What they've found out now is, it restructures everything. Like it can make other parts of your life miserable because like a drug addict, you're not getting pleasant neurotransmitters. And in other ways, there's a really sad thing, and I think it really isolates people, that what you get aroused by might not make you feel like a very good person. But when you're in a cycle of watching harsher or more surprising things, you're then really isolated because you can't say to your friends, it's not even, like in the 90s when people went, oh, look at the tits on that, and had a laugh. Like now it's gone so much darker.
like the Flying Asian helicopter man.
One thing that Lucy, the academic, said was that she was talking about the cause and effect, because if 15-year-olds, if the first sort of sex they've ever seen is very demeaning to women and sort of ugly, then that's what will trigger sexual arousal in them, and so on and so on.
Again, it comes down to critical stages, because 15 is actually quite late. It's earlier than that, and that's when it's really problematic. It's not even that you're learning about sex, you're learning about bodies. You're learning, and at critical stages, if it's around 11 or 12, yeah, that's it. And that's really difficult to overcome later.
What you were saying then, which 10 years ago sounded like, oh, is that the case? Now we can see this generation of men, a lot of young men will refer to themselves as incels, saying I'm involuntarily celibate. People are on apps, swiping left on people, discarding people. Not that swiping left on someone is discarding them, but there's a lot of dysfunction within sexual relationships and dating now. And a lot of that clearly has been, there were probably 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds then who are now 22, 25.
Yeah, and we didn't protect them. They grew up around screens and technology. The adults in their lives didn't know what they should be talking to them about, how they should be protecting them, making them efficient users of things, explaining like what's fictional. The sex education wasn't good enough to prepare them for the world that they were suddenly had access to with not enough limitations. So it's not their fault what's happened to them. The issues and the sad ramifications of some of those things has, I think, perhaps then made people realise we do need to serve young people better if we're going to keep technology this way. I would say turn the internet off. If I was Prime Minister, it would not be popular, but we would all get off our screens.
Yes.
I would just say turn the internet off until we can work out how to eke it in and use it properly with the efficient legislation and protect people. 2 hour screen time max. Everyone in a family. I think that's it. That includes television.
That includes television?
Yep. By the way, yeah, of course, binge that programme, but you can't go to work now. I think it's really sad for people who were probably 10 years ago at formative stages, end of primary school, beginning of secondary school. Their parents would have no idea what was on the internet. How would anyone be prepared? Teachers weren't prepared.
No.
They weren't talking about those things. They were sort of told not to.
We'd never heard of the manosphere when we were making this podcast that you're listening to now. We had not heard of it. And there was a lot of new ideas on the internet. But now I was talking to Julia Gillard the other day, who runs the Women's Leadership Programme at King's, who used to be the Prime Minister of Australia. And she said now there's a real push to, whenever there's anything gender oriented, to what are we doing for boys? How are we including boys? Because there's an understanding we left boys out. But she was like, we don't yet know what's drawn them to the manosphere or how it's worked, and we don't yet know really how to talk to boys or cater to those needs or re-educate people who've been watching a lot of this kind of content. Yeah. But as you said, the wiring of your brain is permanently altered.
I don't know if it's permanent, perhaps, but I do, in terms of, and also, of course, I'm talking about things that are much more educated people than myself. But in terms of neuroplasticity, how neural pathways, the way you use your brain changes how your brain communicates with itself. But you can also stop those things and undo them. You're not broken. And that's the process, isn't it? It's working out how people can have the best life possible to flourish. I mean, in terms of how we talk to boys, I think the problem is that we gave boys really mixed messages. We told them so much stuff at the same time. Of course they felt they were being gaslit in a way. You're telling me this, but also, you're telling me there's equality, but if I go on a date, I'm a heterosexual man, I'm still expected to pay. I'm still expected to be tall, earn money, have nice clothes. So don't tell me things are getting fairer and to respect people. Of course they're going, this isn't fair what you're asking of me. There are still men in my life going, there's a manly way to be, that is right. And it's really confusing. And then the industries that make money off insecurity realised there was a whole market of male insecurity they could tap into. So then they were being told by industries that are really good about, we know this as women, making us feel really shit about themselves. Oh my God, men have got money too. We can make them feel weedy rather than fat usually, but we can make them feel bad about themselves so that they start shopping for this crap that no one needs. So it's honestly, in an empathetic mood today, not men's fault, it's not young men's fault. And for people who work with young men, how could we be prepared for what was going to happen so quickly? No one's a mind reader. It was sort of all happening. And everyone's struggling to get through the day, aren't they? I think the thing now, because it's a couple of generations that have now grown up with the internet. We're the last ones, and we sound like we're 150 years old going, we're the last ones. We remember what it was like. I got an email address when I was 17.
Yes.
I know, we sound like dinosaurs.
Yeah, but it's true. Like, if you're a 2-year-old with an iPad, your brain is forming in a different way. And I wonder if some of that is permanent, because what you bake in
I think
until
there
a
probably
certain
is.
age.
Well, there certainly is things like if you don't hear sounds in language, you get neural pruning at that age. So definitely if you don't use your brain in certain ways, there are permanent effects. So actually you're absolutely right. If you're thinking the effect of screens on young children, that does seem to be. But there's also an argument that they will also use screens for the entirety of their lives. I'm not saying this because my 2-year-old has got an iPad right now. But...
Sorry, hold on. You are Prime Minister in your house.
Yes, I am Prime Minister in my house.
And
I also need to get the dinner on.
I see.
Oh,
It's
so I think there's so many things to worry about. And, especially because we've been to Australia and long plane rides and things like that, there are times where if I could have another husband and it was an iPad. So like, here's my husband, here's the human, this one is the... Actually, it's not even an iPad because they broke the iPad. It's an Amazon Fire. That's a quarter of the price. But it still plays YouTube videos.
That's the poor relation of the of the iPad.
It's a cheaper one.
Yeah, it's a wonderful life being a parent.
Yeah, it's a lot worse than not having children. Even in my voice, in the clips, I can hear how happy I was and light and well rested. There's like a sort of a breathiness to it. Like, oh, I'm here. I'm pleased to be here. I don't have that voice anymore. But I have this one.
But you have such moments of joy and love that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
No, I wouldn't actually. God, it isn't actually something I would say.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it not?
No.
I feel like it's all part of the kind of bigger feminist picture about how much women do.
Well, I think
you've got incredible stand-up on that.
But I don't know if it's incredible. Someone told me that I ruined their International Women's Day.
What?
I know, and I didn't know we were supposed to be enjoying International Women's Day. I didn't know it was like...
No, International Women's Day is normally getting together for breakfast and talking about how hard it is to be a woman.
Yeah, it's horror, isn't it? It's just reminding you, the worldwide, how much work this is to do.
We get back together and say, is there still inequality? Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Did it go up or down from last year?
Everyone.
Oh, down. Disappointing.
I know, it's not like Notting Hill Carnival anyway. So and I think having children has made me a much worse feminist. I'm much less engaged. I have less time for things. I have much more coping with the thing in hand. And exactly what I knew would happen. If you don't have children, you have more energy socially to be a brilliant member of society, in my opinion. Please don't write to me telling me you're a mum of 7 who is campaigning. Congratulations. I won't reply. I don't have time. And I'm not saying this to minimise what women do when they are also parents of any variety. I just personally knew... This was my sort of toss-up, and also not having children until I was 40. This was my toss-up. I knew I can be better without having children, more actively to people I'm not related to. And then once it's the people who are related, they do get... Nature knows what it's doing. They get all of you.
But I would argue, Sarah, that you are raising 2 boys.
Yes.
So you are raising 2 men who are going to be great men in society.
Hopefully. I would love them to be mediocre men. I would love them not to be that confident. My fantasy is they will just enjoy their lives and take pleasure in lots of things and not to be hugely ambitious because they don't have a sort of hole to fill. I would really love them to be balanced, the kind of people like, I might get a promotion, but we like where we live. the hours would be longer. I'd be like, God, I raised some good kids. They don't want to be king.
Yes, that's a good point, actually. If they don't want to be Elon Musk, well done you. What a feminist upbringing.
Yeah.
Can I ask you if you remember your first time a feminist butt? Because you came onto the show and you co-hosted.
Was it the Spice Girls one?
Oh, I hope it is.
Because that was I never bettered that one.
I often use that as an archetype of like the best and most edgy I'm a feminist butt that made me laugh the most. Ned, can you play the one?
I'm a feminist, but while I spend around 5% of my day thinking about gender equality, I spend about 71% of my day practicing how I would dance if Idris Elba was watching.
That's still pretty good.
That is
good, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that's before children.
Yes.
71% of your day was practice dancing.
You have that's the kind of time, the gorgeous kind of time. And also, when I say time, I don't mean it's headspace.
Yeah.
That's what you can think of.
Headspace to think about Idris
I
Elba.
found out that Idris Elba sometimes DJ'd in East London. Sometimes I go to East London. Maybe I'm just walking past. Who's that behind the decks? It's Idris. How will I catch his eye?
How would you dance?
And this is all this sort of delusion of grandeur, which has always been my fuel. So that's serious. That's not me thinking, what's a funny joke for the Guilty Feminist? It's like, this is a shameful secret.
But that's why your I'm a Feminist Butts is so good. Do you remember your Spice Girls one that I found so funny?
No, I remember it was something to do with Jerry, I think.
No,
it was Killing All the Spice. I don't remember what it was, but I remember because of the format, and I remember listening to a Holly Walsh episode before I did it, I had been thinking about them for a while before I got booked.
Okay, what I will say is I did get some complaints about it.
Sure.
But
sure,
it probably made me laugh more than any other I'm a Feminist but ever.
Great.
It was, I'm a feminist, but, this is Sara Pascoe's words, not mine. I'm a feminist, but I would sell the Spice Girls to Boko Haram to get on Strictly Come Dancing.
Wow. Wow.
You can see why the complaints came
Absolutely.
in, but it is
and also,
funny.
And this is a thing about comedy in general, which is a bigger and different conversation. Sometimes you really are, it was a joke format.
Of course,
and
it's
so you're always saying
hyperbole,
a joke, and for a joke to work, sometimes you really do. And if you take the words literally, it is horror.
Yes.
It's horror what you're saying.
Yes.
And it would ruin your International Women's Day if someone you thought spoke for you, you agreed with them on lots of things, you liked them, and they saw them and suddenly they're like, "Why are you being flippant about the most?" Boko Haram is one of those things that even the words. It makes you visualise the reality of what happened.
Yes.
And then, unfortunately, joke formats do
sometimes do that.
Need that.
But
to
I
work.
got to the point where I was doing some stand-up at the Guilty Feminist on stage, and I was caveating every phrase.
Of course.
And it killed.
It
killed it because often it's economy. And in that case, obviously hyperbole. Obviously, you would not do that. Not just hyperbole. It's just like ridiculously outrageous, but it's something what you're saying is I want to be on Strictly so much.
Yes, you're saying a wonderful thing, the worst thing ever for something so selfish. And so you think, essentially you also think it's a joke I am the victim of.
Yes.
But it is, comedy involves such flippancy sometimes, a lot of the time, about things that are truly horrendous. And I love how much people empathise. And the fact is, if you're an empathetic person, you go, why would you joke about fucking Boko Haram? Like, why would you joke about that?
Yeah.
Why? And I understand that response. I've had that response. And unfortunately, you do get, when you work in comedy for as long as we have, you also go, it's jokes. And so you think the whole thing is, it's a cheekiness. Of course, the economy, caveats ruin the rhythm. And the whole point is, the arena we're in is, you understand the cheekiness and the thingy. And even if you're shocked, it's shocked in a way where you then laugh with the relief of, I know you're joking, but I can't believe you said that.
Yeah.
And so the aim ultimately is trying to bring pleasure. And so it's a horrible feeling when you don't. And then you end up in Caveat City. And then you end up going, should I have even done comedy? But should I be just a comedian who's just like, I'm just a comedian?
Yeah, I'm not trying to say anything.
Yeah, I might give to charity.
I'm not interested enough in that. I just feel like to get a bra on and get out, leave the house, get your shoes on, I've got to have something to say.
Yes.
And I also really respect and admire comedians for whom it's worth getting their shoes on and leaving the house to build an invisible, imaginative world. And I love that.
Yes,
some of James Acaster's most classic shows, what he's been doing is so inventive and imaginative. It's just... he builds a world that's...
But I would say James is a great example, because someone might say that, James Acaster is surreal, but his stuff about Ricky Gervais is much more powerful than anyone else who believes in trans rights trying to take down Ricky Gervais.
Yes.
It's so funny.
Yes.
And it's from a comic who is, and I hope this isn't controversial, better than Ricky Gervais. He had a routine years and years ago about people who were getting confused about using they as a pronoun, and it was at the time, it was so early. I've always felt that he's so evolved.
Yeah. He is.
So he'll have a bit about avocados, and then he'll go into something and go, this is highly politicised with a small p, and no one's noticed because it's so funny. So you're absolutely right. This is why we're all so passionate about comedy. People leave the house to go to it as an entertainment form and don't realise that
There's
person
a lot
also
of
has
stuff.
beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
And is trying to make the world better. God, I'm going to burst into tears, Deb. You've made me feel much better about my joke.
Yeah. But it's true. So someone like James is such a great example, because sometimes his whole show will be a flight of fancy, but then when he does get political, or he talks about mental health, or there's a twist at the end where he's making some kind of cultural commentary, he shares in an imaginative, inventive flight of fancy, a piece of politics with you that is so relevant. And as you say, a lot of people will be more receptive to it than they will being told off or lectured.
He did a show about therapy, going to therapy, and for lots of his audience, especially male audience, they're hearing a man be vulnerable, and talking about therapy, normalising talk about therapy. That's so much more powerful than an essay or a really good article from someone in a broadsheet newspaper. Hearing someone that people relate to and would like to go for a drink with, normalise those kind of things. So I think the raft of male comedians that we came up with, I'm so proud of them.
Oh, I think it's a golden age of comedy.
It's a golden age, yeah.
It really, really is. Like, if you look what was happening in the noughties compared to now, people are doing incredibly well-crafted one-hour shows that are personal, that are political, that are fanciful, but they are, you know, the competition, and I don't mean that sharp elbow competition, because people are actually very supportive of each other. They go to see each other's shows. It's a really lovely era for comedy, I think.
And it's interesting with the Guilty Feminist in this decade, because also what happened around 10 years ago is feminism became a really joked about thing in Edinburgh. I mean, Bridget Christie won, and Bridget Christie has been doing feminist comedy, but I don't want to say it's just feminist. I mean, it's funny comedy, and she's political in lots of ways. But she's been branded very much as a feminist comedian.
True.
But there were so many, and then it became, and we were all thinking about feminism so much and deconstructing it and having very strong opinions and a variety of them, that suddenly it became that there was this overlap between a comedy audience and an audience who were also learning about feminism, wanting to push feminism further, and there were a lot more women talking.
The range of different interesting voices and the methods they're using and the shows they're putting together, there is something really, really special about this generation of comedians.
The hardest thing is to be a 21-year-old white man who wants to talk about wanking into a sock. You're going to have to do very, very good now to break through.
Yes, because people feel they've seen that, and that's because they have.
It's because we have.
You're, I think, quite unique in as much as you are very intellectual with your comedy. And your first book was Animal, the autobiography of a female body. And that was actually only a couple of months after the
it's 10 years
porn
ago
episode.
this year. Yeah,
wow.
I know.
How did that change your career? How's that changed the last 10 years for you?
Probably not hugely, but the big changes are when I realised I wanted to write books as well as stand-up comedy. It meant that stand-up comedy on stage could be lighter. There were sometimes things that I would want to talk about and I'd think, maybe this isn't for stand-up, maybe this is a book or an article, because, to go back to that flippancy that we've already discussed, that sometimes subjects are too serious or too interesting and you don't want to have to punchline it. Sometimes there's stuff you just want to say. And that's what Animal gave me, is an idea of, okay, here are some serious things that I'm grappling with, to have a bit longer to talk about them. And then, and you've been through this yourself, it is an amazing communion when someone spent time with your book and then comes to a book signing or a show. And it just feels like for someone to give you that amount of their time and their attention, it's great when someone sees you at a gig or they come to one of your shows and they've spent an evening with you, essentially. But to spend days with you or take you in the bath with them or on the bus, I just think how incredible to have a book, even if only 6 people read it. Like, what a privilege to get to write one in the first place, to get someone publishing it, and then for anyone to actually finish it. And now, because it's 10 years, sometimes I get, and it's obviously it's few and far between, but at a book signing at a show, someone will say, I reread it recently. I think, imagine that.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Reread it.
Yeah, they read it and then they thought, I'm going to go and see her. I'll read her book again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you mean about that. Yes, that someone will say, I read this in your book and I thought this. And it's just such an incredible way of having a dialogue with someone, but it is a massive privilege. Or sometimes people say with the podcast, they say, I fall asleep listening to the Guilty Feminist, and now that doesn't sound like a compliment. It sounds like,
but we've all done it to other podcasts, and it means you are an intimate part of my life.
Yeah, you're in someone's ears as they fall asleep.
They like your voice. You make them feel relaxed. What you want for a falling asleep podcast is it's interesting enough that I'm not bored. I think I'm listening, and then I gently go to sleep, and it's not toxic where I go, why did I put that in my brain before going to bed?
Somebody said to me today, actually, a friend of mine said, I was listening to a podcast to fall asleep and the Guilty Feminist was in my queue. So every time I woke up in the night, you were talking to me, and there was like, I had about four episodes all just queued up. And she said, I feel like you've been in my bedroom all night, because every time I rolled over, I was like, you were going, blah, 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 blah.
I do think that's a flirty message. I think that's quite an extreme.
I did say, well, how hot to be in bed with you all night, and she said it wasn't. I was wearing my mouth guard, so it was more of an emotional intimacy, I think, than an invitation. Something I realised looking into these episodes is the theme of sex work and your own complex feelings towards it came up a few times. You then went on to make a podcast series and write a book on this subject, Sex, Power and Money. And I think I interviewed you about that at the South Bank Centre.
We sat in the Michelle Obama's chair, do you remember?
Yes, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
They said Michelle Obama sat in that chair and the interviewer sat in that chair. And so we both switched chairs because we wanted to make sure we were in the Michelle Obama chair. Sometimes people say to me that the episodes they do on the Guilty Feminist, they kind of write material for it, or they riff their thoughts in conversation, and then they use some of those ideas in their book or in their stand-up show.
Yeah.
Which way around does that go for you? When you've been on the Guilty Feminist, do you riff ideas that you then might use in your show, or do you more likely have already ideas that you're going to work on for a show or a book and then maybe chat them out on the podcast?
I think it can be a mixture. I think it's easier to say yes to a podcast if you think, oh, I'm already thinking about that area. And then what happens, and this is again, I think we're so lucky, and you're so lucky, and we're so lucky that you've had us on here, because what you wouldn't get if you were working up an idea for a show is an hour and a half to talk really around it, and then see where the audience were engaged and interested, and then think, oh, that's the subject, that's the angle, we got there together, it was a communal thing in the room. Sometimes with stand-up, you have to take such a leap to say it out loud, and you've already formed it as material before you find out no one else is interested in this but you. If you got given 90 minutes to just sort of have a conversation around it, and then you'd go home with lots swirling around, and that would be so useful to you in terms of writing a bit that might end up only being 3 minutes, but you've saved yourself so much work in terms of that's the aspect of that big topic that's interesting to you and the audience. And
you talked to me when I once wrote a book where I interviewed a lot of stand-up comedians about stand-up comedy called Off the Mic with brilliant Marsha Shandor. And you said something that I often quote, which is, if you're doing new material, you may think the punchline is here, but nobody laughs. So you've got to keep talking until you come to the punctuation of the laugh. And I always use that as such a good shorthand, the punctuation of the laugh. And that's so true. And it was the one thing that of all the comedians we interviewed, because we were looking for principles that a lot of people use and then aberrations, but the one thing everyone had in common, because Tom and I wrote a book about improvisation called The Improv Handbook, but we understood what our shared principles were there and what we agreed with and what we didn't, because improvisation is a collaborative, but stand-up, everyone does it differently, and how you do it is how you do it. But the only thing all stand-ups agreed on was that they wrote on stage, because whatever you prepare, when you go out onto stage, just the audience, and it doesn't matter how famous you are, it doesn't matter, the audience may not agree that that's the punchline.
Which is the thing, and I think where I do think stand-up is like improv, it is a collaboration. It's just it's whether the comic wants to give the audience the credit for shaping it.
Yes.
It's where people who've got lovely audiences tend to have much lovelier stand-up. Harsher comics tend to have a much harsher audience, and the audiences get the shows that they deserve. I mean, all of the audiences that a comic tries their material to, they are the people who decide what's in the show. It is a co-writing experience.
It's very true.
Yeah, but very hard for the ego-driven comic to give credit.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. It's democratic, and you get what you vote for. So the comedy that you go to see is the comedy you get, and vice versa.
It's true. If it is an agreement between you, and to just call back something we were talking about before in terms of jokes that are sometimes hyperbolic, but they're funny because there's a certain sort of, I can't believe you said that. I used to have a lot more people complaining about, like, if a comedian would come on and do something that was edgier. And what I would do is I would generally just write back and say, I completely understand why you felt that this set wasn't, what you objected to in the set. And in the room, generally, the audience will accept people are riffing and people are trying things out.
Yeah.
But once you publish it, once you put it online,
So
that has a different context.
Yeah, so this is what the really difficult thing about podcasting and now clips online. The place where the person is listening to your joke is not in a venue with a social contract. We are here to laugh. We understood the energy of the room is, I know you're good and I know you didn't mean anything bad. And yes, you're talking about a very serious thing, but we also wanted to laugh tonight. They're on the bus. They're about to fall asleep. They're in the bath. They've got 5 minutes before dinner has to be ready. And then they hear you say something. They're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like I've come into your house and said the worst thing you've heard for weeks.
I wrote a whole chapter about this in the 6 Conversations We're Scared to Have book, because I wrote a chapter called Freedom of Speech in Comedy. In a conversation, I can edit because, of course, everyone understands you need to edit a podcast. But if someone's come along and delivered their stand-up set, that doesn't feel right to me to edit that, because it feels rude to edit someone else's pre-prepared art. So all I can do is either stop asking stand-ups to do stand-up, which I think makes the podcast weaker because it's not funny anymore, which draws a lot of people in.
It was always a comedy podcast right from the very beginning.
It was always a comedy podcast. So
it's not like you changed, but then added an element. Yeah.
So, and because what I can't do is ask comedians to submit their stand-up ahead of time in a written form, because no one would do it, everyone would be insulted, and I would feel like McCarthy censoring people's stuff.
Yeah.
So I can't censor it. So I have to just trust that people will come along because they're trying to write something on a theme.
And also, how could you censor it in a way where you wouldn't upset somebody? You would just keep failing at it. So you become more and more McCarthyist as you were like, okay, here's my very, very small, because every week, I think I've seen it from every single angle and there's another one.
Yes. Welcome to the Guilty Feminist with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Please submit your stand-up ahead of time. Red pen, red pen, red pen, red pen. There is literally no way around it except inviting people on that you trust or you've had recommended to you and letting them do what they do and putting it out there and running it up the flagpole and seeing if anyone salutes. I think I've only censored someone's stand-up once because I didn't know them and it was absolutely so out there that I just went, oh, does not reflect the values in any way.
I mean, and actually that's good. If it crosses a line to the point where you go, it's not worth not upsetting a comic. They will just have to understand I've existed long enough now. I know my audience well enough.
Yes.
I'm not doing you a favour to put this out in public if this is how my audience find out about you, for instance. Because it was a two-way street. It was a launch pad for so many people's careers. It was part of them finding bigger audiences in Edinburgh, on tours, that kind of thing. You had hundreds of thousands of listeners right at the beginning of podcasts, it feels like to me, and people realising how podcast audiences could translate to ticket sales. So you also wanted people, your audience, to find comics they love.
Yes.
And they're not going to do that if you've put in something which perhaps isn't representative of the comic.
And that's very satisfying for me as well when people do find people. I went to see Aisling B's show at the Hammersmith Apollo the other night.
Did you? Yeah.
And I was on the tube and there were two young women kind of smiling and nodding at me. And I sort of looked at them and they said, hi, we just want to say hi. And we love the podcast. And I said, oh, that's so nice. And I said, I'm going to see Aisling B. And they said, so are we. Yeah. And so we all went together and they said, we found Aisling B through the Guilty Feminist and Alison Spittle.
That was the first one I co-hosted. Aisling was the guest. It was about fast fashion.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. That's what that I'm a Feminist But was from.
Yes, from that very one. Isn't that lovely? They found her through you and then they saw you on the train.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a lovely thing. And if I go to your show or if I go to any of the comedians that do the Guilty Feminist, always people will come up to me in the audience and say, oh, we love the show or whatever. And then you think, oh, yes, of course, there's this Venn diagram crossover, which is really nice. Whereas if I go to another comedian's show who doesn't do the Guilty Feminist, that won't necessarily happen.
Yeah.
And that makes it feel like a community.
It's really fantastic. And also I think it underlines the point, and that you were right. You were booking comics to be a comedy podcast where comics come on and did their comedy.
Yes.
It wasn't comedy adjacent. And then they also do stand-up. You're also giving people an opportunity. It's really hard to get people to come and see your stand-up if they've seen this. Like I hosted Sewing Bee, for instance.
Yes.
And if they watch you hosting a sewing show, they don't know that they like your comedy. But if they let me do 5 minutes stand-up in the middle of every episode of Sewing Bee, they might have come to a gig, do you see?
Yes.
So the stand-up bit is important. And sometimes it was written specifically for the podcast. So people weren't using up their material so much as they were showing everyone, this is my voice.
This is the kind of thing I do.
This is my angle on stuff.
And increasingly, I say people should just do the stand-up they want to do, because I was always very worried about it being on theme.
Yeah.
And like, could you in some way, shape or form reference the theme, even if you're kind of slightly wedged it in? And I've realised over the years, nobody cares. Do you have any favourite Guilty Feminist memories?
So I've got lots of lovely memories. I can't think of a bad one.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, there were some lovely ones. You did the Palladium, didn't you?
Must have done that. I think I had blue shoes on. So I think that maybe that was the first time I was ever at the Palladium. It's got that big mirror backstage.
Yes, I always
And
look
we were
into that
running
mirror.
around, yeah.
Whenever I do the Palladium or I do someone else's gig or I go
Yeah.
backstage after someone else's gig, I think Judy Garland looked in this mirror. You know, like you think about all the people who
Yeah.
played the Palladium who've looked in the same
I
mirror.
always think, take that. Because they go, take that. I've looked in that.
Take that. I've looked in
Mark
this.
Cohen's looked in that
I've
mirror.
used the same loo as Robbie Williams.
Yeah.
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 So, you
Wow.
know, and we sat in the Michelle Obama chair.
I know. Our bottoms. What a life.
Can I ask you how you feel about the last 10 years in feminism?
Obviously, I've been thinking about this in preparation for speaking to you, and I would have predicted, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have predicted that by now I would have been really hopeful.
Right.
And I do think that you can create a narrative where positive things have happened.
Yes.
But I also think that it is really difficult not to be disheartened and think it's too hard. So Giselle Pellico,
Ugh.
which is the thing I think of, when you say the last 10 years, this is what I think of the most. If it was fictional, no one would believe it was true. I mean, as in no one would believe it was representative of men.
Yes.
And it is men. And that doesn't mean it lives in every man. I don't know what it's like to be a man. I don't know what it's like to be a man when a crime like that is exposed and we're having this conversation. But the amount of men, the amount of normal men living normal lives as loving partners and brilliant parents and brilliant at their jobs, for me feels like we should stop everything else and smash the world open. Like this is what we've been trying to say.
Yes.
In the commonality.
Between Giselle Pellico and Epstein, you just go, oh, that's too many men.
The Epstein thing, and because of the wealth of it and the power element, you could almost pretend that was a strata of society. This is what happens to people if they're at this hyperbolic level of freedom and they think they can get away with things. The ordinariness...
Power leads to power abuse,
yes,
etc.
Yeah. So you could almost say extraordinary lives could lead to this extraordinary criminality. I would understand that as a narrative, not understand it in an accepting way, but it would make the world an easier place to live in. If it's like, we need to deal with the super wealthy.
Yes.
We need to deal with the men in powerful positions. So when you take it down to the most ordinary men, the horror.
In Giselle Pellico.
Yes, Giselle Pellico. The horror and the thing that women have been trying to say for such a long time. How do we deal with this? How do we deal with the fact that we have to deal with a world inhabited 50% of our communities, and we know that's there, and we keep telling you it's there, and we keep we're screaming and we're scared, and it affects so many elements of our lives, and then we're having to chill out and be reasonable and keep a lid on it for so much of our life, to go to work, to be a teacher, to be a parent, and so it doesn't feel, I don't want to punch the air, but I do feel like maybe the fact that those two examples are seismic and out in the open and now part of the discussion will, if someone was writing a historical paper in 20 years' time, say, actually those things being so widely acknowledged, not one person's opinion, not, that one victim had an extreme experience. Maybe the banality will... It doesn't feel like we're in a revolution, but maybe there's slower changes that happen just because young people grow up knowing about things.
It did.
The openness of something, exposing it.
I did. Did you read the book?
I've got the book, but I haven't read it.
I read the book pretty much the first night I got it. I had to write a little review of it, so I stayed up all night reading it. And
see, that's what I'm scared of. Is
that you'll stay up all night reading it,
or that then you've got all of it in your brain.
It was very beautifully written.
Yeah.
But there was some, there's the whole thing about it is I've always been that feminist that has gone, most men would never hurt anybody, and most men, etc., etc. And it's the minority of very violent men or men that really harbour deep misogyny, they're the ones that need to be told not all men by the good guys or the decent guys. The ordinary guys need to go, it's not all men, because they're the ones that think it is all men.
Yeah.
And that's what they know, you know. And I said this at a stand-up show that I did, and there were some people afterwards that stayed and said, we work with the government in trying to deal with men like this, and it's true. The big thing is that they assume all men hurt women.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they're just not man enough to do it.
Yeah.
But they all want to. And that's not true. Yeah. So I was always like, we need to tell those men, not all men. They're the ones that need to know. And when the decent guys are like, ha, ha, in the locker room just to, you know, social oil, it's just a bit of an out there joke or whatever, they need to say no. They need to say, no, this isn't okay. They need to talk to each other. They need to talk to their kids. They need to talk to so on and so on. But the Giselle Pellico crime story did give me pause, I have to say, of how many men in a small French town and the surrounds, not just how many men, but how many, so many more men might have done it then who didn't see the ad or were saw the ad, wanted to, but were too frightened to go. Like, we're going to go, but
men
then...
who did it and didn't think they'd raped anyone. That the people who assaulted Giselle Pellico, who was asleep, and then went away and sort of knew they had done something wrong. Or they thought, it's okay, she must know. But several of them had told themselves a story where if her husband was doing it, she must know. So she was consenting, she was complicit in some way. Yes, exactly. They told themselves a version of it where they weren't the bad person. That's the part of humanity I find really scary. And that's the part where maybe this goes back all the way to not wanting to watch people kiss. I think male sexuality is really terrifying. It is the reason as well as female sexuality. Female sexuality is also the reason, but our species is absolutely brilliant at breeding, and that's why we're here. This is why we have absolutely destroyed this planet. We are incredible at being apes, and our sexual drive is a really important part of that. But that animal drive, we are now trying to be civilised and not hurt each other. That's such a massive jump.
I want us to be evolved well beyond that. And
and sexuality is plastic, and I do believe it, but it also means you have to talk about sex, sexual arousal, all of those things throughout life. It has to be part of societal education. The way you talk about good manners at a table, and we know not to spit and blow our nose on the tablecloth or shit on the carpet. There are things we teach children that later on, as we're becoming... And I don't have the answers to that, how you do that without screwing them up and making them never want to have sex ever again.
Yes.
Like all my aunties and uncles kept talking to me about
yes.
Yeah, what arousal was and pleasure and all of these things. But it feels like we're a stone's throw from the Victorians, and now we've got hardcore pornography on everyone's phones. Of course we're in a mess. So in terms of that, to bring it back to the question of 10 years, I think it would be a disservice to any woman or any feminist alive now to be like, I do think it's getting better, because I maybe don't, but I do think we know, I think we know more. We've got the stats, we've got the data on a lot more bad things.
I think women are much more aware now. Like, I'm a lot more aware than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, that can lead to some unhappiness because I'm aware and I'm not sailing through life. I can see it. I can see it. But I think awareness is the first step.
That's true.
To change.
I mean, in terms of being more intersectional, which obviously isn't an end of, we've got a lot of work still to do. That's a massive improvement. I would have probably 10 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, said things that didn't include trans women properly, that didn't include women of different races, who'd grown up in different cultures. I would have really meant well, but I would have denied other people's lived experience. So more awareness and more work in that area is very, very positive. But again, what's shitty is it is women doing that work in the majority. I mean, this is a women's space, women trying to improve.
Yes, yeah, a lot of the time it is.
Yeah.
What do you see for the next 10 years? Do you feel like you've got...
The technology stuff has to be addressed properly legally. You know, Laura Bates has written brilliant books.
Yes, I love Laura Bates. And she is a real treasure, Laura Bates. She's
a treasure, but also she's a martyr. And I maybe that's the wrong word. What she has had, how difficult her fucking life is because of her strident way of fighting. Women like me, my cowardice in certain areas is because I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't deal with that level of fear.
Oh,
because of the men she has enraged.
Oh my goodness!
By telling the truth.
But she is the most kind-hearted, softest individual in the world.
Yeah,
she is so warm and soft to talk to, and she comes under so much fire because she's written books about misogyny, exposing things. And did you read her latest one about?
So we had her on the book podcast, and again, it's a book where, and this has actually happened to me a lot more as a parent, I get so scared. It's like I have so little time. Something like reading, which is for my pleasure, it's my favourite thing. I so often steer, and I shouldn't do. I should be confronting these things. This is the reality of the world, but I go, not today, not today.
Yes,
but I read it.
that.
I found a book. I didn't read the one about the online forums and stuff because I know it's there, and I couldn't go out and do my job. I have to go out and think, hello everyone, aren't you nice? That's why I think the lightness in my voice on the podcast 10 years ago is the lightness of someone who didn't have as much of that in her brain.
Yeah, didn't know as much.
Yeah.
What do you think we can do as feminists and artists, comedians with platforms? What do you think we can do in the next couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years?
I think the stuff that really, I think, works is the leading with love. I think anger is really important, and there's lots of things to be angry about, and it's a very motivating emotion. But I think the more lovingly we can keep, everyone is included in this. No one is left behind. This is for everyone. If we're not speaking for you yet, tell us why. Tell us what we need to know. The open ears of it, especially if you're making work. We're making work about our experience now, what we want in the future, what we've experienced in the past. We here, living in this country, are so lucky. I know there's things that are really scary going on in the world at large, and I'm not saying everything in this country's yay,
no,
but we are so lucky. Those of us often who have time for activism or making art are the luckiest of the lucky to have even the time or the headspace. We should also be enjoying our lives at the same time, and I think that's where the loving thing comes in. We're not like doctors where we have to compartmentalise, but I do think let's have some fun, some playfulness, some letting each other off the hook a little bit, maybe not telling each other off quite as much. Of course, we can all raise each other up and say, I think you can be better at this. But I think it's those elements of continuing what we're doing, and then hopefully more people will join and it becomes this commonplace. And what we've always wanted really is that a generation of people look back and go, oh, that's weird. So that we had to have a movement for equality.
Yes.
God, wow, all right.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I really look forward to leading with love with you for the next 10 years.
Oh, thank you.
We hope you come back and do many more Guilty Feminists in the next decade.
Yeah, I hope so too.
It's been amazing to have you.
It's so lovely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been great. You have been listening to The Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Frances-White, and my very special guest, Sara Pascoe. The Guilty Feminist theme tune was composed by Mark Hodge. The producers for The Spontaneity Shop were Tom Salinsky and Ned Sedgwick. Thanks to Gina DCO, Zeynep Mohammed, and all of you for listening. For more information about this and other episodes, visit guiltyfeminist.com.